At dinner, my son-in-law let out a laugh. So, what's it like being a failure? The table erupted in laughter, except for me. I just smiled and said calmly, "Tell me, how does it feel knowing that this so-called failure won't be paying your bills anymore?" The moment those words left my mouth, the color drained from Sheldon's face, and suddenly, the dinner table turned into a battleground. But you won't believe what happened next. Before we go on, be sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're tuning in from. You know, Mark, Sheldon began, swirling the overpriced Cabernet in his glass like a prop. Retirement must be such a sweet gig. No pressure, no deadlines, no real purpose. I set my fork down gently, ignoring the now cold prime rib on my plate. Around the table, the same table I'd helped Caroline pick out the year before, candlelight flickered off cut crystal and polished mahogany. My daughter had pulled out all the stops for Sheldon's big night. His promotion to regional sales manager. It has its moments, I said simply, watching him take another gulp of the wine I'd brought. Sheldon leaned back in his chair, the head seat he'd unofficially claimed ever since he started seeing himself as the alpha at family dinners. Don't get me wrong, you had a solid run as an engineer, but that was, 4 decades ago. The game's changed. It's all digital now. Fast. Agile. It takes a younger brain to keep up. Caroline shifted awkwardly beside me. The bracelet she wore, a Christmas gift from me, caught the light. Dad had a great career, she said, her voice a little too firm. He built infrastructure that's still used today. Sure, Sheldon replied, waving a dismissive hand. But when's the last time he actually built anything? I mean, accomplished something real? Across the table, my 9-year-old granddaughter Emma looked up from her chicken. Grandpa built me a treehouse last summer, she said proudly. That's adorable, sweetie. Sheldon gave her a condescending pat on the head. But Grandpa needs to understand that being a man means earning for your family. Not just coasting through retirement, while the rest of us carry the load. An uncomfortable silence settled like fog over the table. Caroline laughed nervously. Let's maybe change the subject. Emma, tell Grandpa about your piano recital. But Sheldon wasn't done. The promotion had gone straight to his head, and the wine had greased his tongue. In fact, I've been thinking, he said, turning toward me. Now that I'm pulling in a real salary, 6 figures and climbing, it's probably time everyone else started pulling their weight too. I knew exactly where this was going. 15 years of mortgage help, tuition payments, car leases, emergency medical expenses, 15 years of bailing him out while he spent like he was invincible. He motioned toward Caroline. Take my wife. She's been out of the workforce for ages, living off, well, let's call it what it is, family handouts. Maybe it's time she re-entered the world of actual work. Caroline turned ghostly pale. She knew as well as I did that their entire lifestyle, the private school tuition, the BMW lease, the luxury kitchen remodel, was possible only because I'd quietly kept the engine running. Tommy, my 12-year-old grandson, picked up on the tension. Are we in trouble, Dad? No, buddy, Sheldon replied. But it's important to understand the difference between earners and freeloaders. Between people who provide and people who... He looked straight at me. Those who've simply stopped trying. The insult settled into the room like a heavy fog. Caroline reached for her wine with shaking fingers. The kids exchanged uncertain glances. Sheldon leaned in, mistaking my silence for submission. Don't take this personally, Mark, but someone has to be real. When was the last time you did something meaningful? When was the last time you earned something instead of just existing? He paused, clearly savoring his moment. How does it feel to be a loser? It hit like a slap. Caroline gasped. Tommy dropped his fork. Emma began to cry. But I didn't flinch. I took a slow sip of water, set the glass down with care, and looked him square in the eyes. How does it feel? I asked, voice calm and even. To realize that starting today, this so-called loser won't be paying your bills anymore. The blood drained from Sheldon's face faster than wine from a shattered glass. Caroline clamped a hand over her mouth. The children looked from me to him, puzzled by the sudden shift. Sheldon's smug expression dissolved into unease. I went back to eating, calmly cutting a slice of meat as if nothing had happened, while the rest of the table sat frozen in stunned silence. Outside, darkness crept over the neighborhood. A distant dog barked. After a long moment, I wiped my mouth with my napkin, stood up, and kissed Emma and Tommy on the forehead. "Dinner was wonderful, Caroline." "Thank you." I grabbed my coat from the closet and stepped into the crisp March air, leaving behind a table of people who, for the first time, had begun to understand what 15 years of quiet generosity had really looked like. The 15-minute drive home passed without a word. My hands were steady on the wheel, even as the storm rolled quietly inside me. I pulled into my driveway, the motion light flickering on and casting long shadows across the walkway. Inside, I hung up my coat and headed straight for my study. The room held the scent of polished wood and aging paper. I clicked on the brass lamp atop my desk, its soft light revealing 15 years of carefully filed paperwork, my quiet archive of sacrifice. As a retired engineer, I had kept everything: receipts, statements, cancelled checks. Now it was time to confront the true cost of my so-called failure. I opened the top drawer labeled 2009 to 2012. The folders were color-coded: blue for mortgage help, green for car loans, yellow for school expenses, red for medical costs. Martha had passed away in late 2008. By early 2009, Caroline was already struggling. February, $2,800. March, $2,800 again. Month after month, $2,800 in mortgage assistance. For 180 months. The calculator screen blinked. $504,000 in housing support alone. Next, I opened the auto loan folder: Sheldon's BMW lease, Caroline's SUV payment. $200 a month for 8 years, $115,200. The numbers began to rise like a tide. Each file unearthed another piece of generosity I'd long since forgotten. One drawer was packed entirely with tuition invoices. Private schools for Tommy from kindergarten through 7th grade. Emma from preschool to 4th. Institutions with indoor pools and Mandarin immersion programs. $24,000 a year, plus summer camps and extracurriculars. $192,000. Next came healthcare, insurance premiums during Sheldon's employment gaps, dental work for the kids, therapy sessions after Caroline's near divorce. One manila envelope after another filled with co-pays, insurance forms, medical bills I'd quietly paid. $8,000 annually for 15 years. $120,000. Then I found the vacation receipts, tucked behind old health insurance paperwork. Disney World, 2015. The European cruise in 2018. Ski trips. Holiday gifts. Emergency car repairs. Kitchen renovation down payment. Another $45,000 in extras. I leaned back in my leather chair. The final number sat there, blinking back at me: $976,200. Nearly $1 million. For the first time since Martha's funeral, I truly felt the weight of the promise I had made to her. "Don't worry about Caroline," I'd whispered at her bedside. "I'll make sure she's okay." I remembered Caroline's tears at the funeral. The panic about a mortgage she and Sheldon couldn't cover. Her gratitude in the early years, weekly calls, baked cookies, visits with the kids. But when had that gratitude faded? When had support turned into entitlement? I reached for the files marked personal. Documents outlining my own compromises. The smaller retirement account, delayed investments. A modest 2-bedroom home instead of the lake cabin I'd dreamed of. The old pickup I still drove while Sheldon showed off in leased luxury. The travel brochures I never used because Caroline always needed something. The hobbies I gave up. The woman from church who stopped inviting me to dinner because I was always tied up with family. I had poured nearly $1 million into 15 years of someone else's life, at the cost of my own. By 10:30 that night, I reached for my phone and opened my banking contact list. Tomorrow would involve some adjustments. Sunday morning, the coffee felt different, stronger somehow. I sat at my kitchen table watching sparrows pick at crumbs on the patio, then returned to my study, where papers now sat in crisp, military precision, ready for battle. I dialed National Bank. Third ring. Account services, this is Jennifer. How can I assist you? I need to cancel all automatic payments from checking account 45789942156. I said, my voice as steady as it had been in 4 decades of presentations. May I verify the last 4 digits of your social security number? The process took 12 minutes. Jennifer was polite, professional, unaware she was disassembling 15 years of financial scaffolding with each keystroke. Those payments have now been cancelled, Mr. Bennett. Is there anything else I can help you with? No, that'll be all. Thank you. I placed a checkmark next to mortgage, $2,800 per month. The insurance account required escalation. Canceling Sheldon's BMW lease took 3 transfers and a little patience. Every call followed the same rhythm: identity verification, silent typing, confirmation numbers that I logged in a neat notebook. By 11:15 a.m., I had crossed off 8 recurring payments. Then, at 11:47, the phone rang. Dad? Caroline's voice sounded confused, not yet alarmed. Something weird happened with our mortgage account. The bank called, said there weren't enough funds. But that doesn't make sense because... I waited. Because you thought I'd keep paying forever, I said evenly. Silence. Thin and stretched like wire between us. What do you mean? Her voice rose, tight with disbelief. Exactly what I told you last night, I said. I'm done covering your expenses. But Dad, you can't just... The mortgage. The insurance. Tommy's school. I cut her off gently. All cancelled as of this morning. I heard her breath catch, speeding up. This isn't funny. We could lose the house. Then it's time you and Sheldon figured out how to keep it yourselves. The line went silent. I glanced down at my notebook. 6 more calls to make. The utility companies were surprisingly efficient. Centura Academy's billing office barely asked a question. I logged each confirmation number with the same methodical precision I'd used in every engineering report I'd ever written. Caroline called again at 12:23 p.m. Her voice this time was tight, raw with actual fear. Dad, please. I don't understand. The school called. So did the insurance company. Even the electric company. They're saying our payments were rejected. That's because I cancelled all the automatic transfers from my accounts. Your accounts? She said it like the words didn't make sense together. Did you think those payments came from nowhere, Caroline? There was a pause. Then. But we never asked you to. You didn't have to ask. I just did it. We can't have. She stopped herself. Yes, I said. That's the point. At 12:31, my phone rang again. This time, it was Sheldon. Mark, whatever game you're playing, cut it out. Now. No game. Just facts. You're tearing this family apart because you got your feelings hurt at dinner? I'm not tearing anything apart, I said. I'm just stopping the money. You always said you hated failure. Well, congratulations. Now you get to feel like one. Then figure out your own expenses. His silence lasted even longer than Caroline's. My final call was to my financial advisor. We scheduled a meeting for Monday to redirect all those monthly payments into the retirement fund I'd neglected far too long. Outside, the sparrows had returned for more crumbs. At 1:15 p.m. I heard the unmistakable rumble of Sheldon's BMW in my driveway. I watched from the living room window as he slammed the door harder than necessary. Caroline followed, clutching her purse like it was a flotation device. They marched up the walkway with the urgent indignation of people convinced they were in the right. I opened the door before they could knock. We need to talk, Sheldon barked, pushing past me uninvited. Caroline trailed behind, eyes red and swollen. "Please come in," I said to their backs. Sheldon planted himself in the middle of my living room like he was staking a claim. "This little tantrum ends now. You're going to call the banks and reverse every cancellation." "No. I'm not." His face turned crimson. "You can't just cut us off. There are legal implications. Verbal agreements. Then show me the agreement where I promise to bankroll your life indefinitely." Caroline stepped forward, voice shaking. "Dad, think about what Mom would want. You made a promise at her funeral, remember?" The mention of Martha hit like a gust of cold air. But I'd anticipated this. "I promised I'd help you get on your feet. That was 15 years ago. And nearly $1 million later, you're more unstable than when I started." $1 million?" Caroline whispered. I walked to my desk and retrieved my notebook and calculator. $976,200, I said. Mortgage assistance. Car leases. Insurance premiums. Tuition. Medical bills. Vacations. Emergencies. I held up the notebook. "Would you like it broken down by category?" Sheldon faltered for a moment. Just 3 seconds of stunned silence before his bluster returned. "That's ridiculous. We never asked for that much." "No, you didn't," I said. "You just counted on it." Caroline slumped onto the couch, pale and wide-eyed. "But what about the kids? Tommy's baseball, Emma's dance. Those will continue," I said. "But I'll pay the organizations directly from now on. No more funds going through either of you. You can't just divide us like this." Sheldon snapped. "We're a family. A team. Teams rely on mutual respect," I said. "When was the last time either of you thanked me?" The room fell silent. Caroline's tears came in waves, like they had when she was 16 and had her first heartbreak. "I didn't know it was that much," she whispered. "I thought you wanted to help. I thought it made you happy." "It did," I said. "Until it stopped being appreciated. Until it became expected." Sheldon paced like a caged animal. "Fine. You want gratitude? Here it is, thank you. Now turn the payments back on." "Gratitude doesn't work in reverse, Sheldon." He stopped pacing. For the first time since they arrived, his face looked more concerned than combative. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "I want you to live within your means. I want my grandchildren to grow up watching their parents earn what they have, not waiting for it to be handed to them. I want to be seen as a father and grandfather. Not an ATM." Caroline looked up, her voice cracking. "But what if we can't? What if we lose everything? Then," I said quietly, "you'll finally understand what failure feels like." The silence that followed was complete. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. Sheldon straightened his posture, sliding back into corporate performance mode. "We'll see about this," he said coldly. "There are attorneys who handle elder financial abuse." I almost smiled. "Please, call them. I'd love to walk them through how I've been the one financially abused for 15 years. They left without another word. The BMW roared to life, tires protesting on the pavement. I watched them drive away until they were out of sight. Only then did I realize my hands were trembling. Silence settled around me, heavy and wide, like water rushing in where a dam once stood. I sank into the leather armchair Martha gave me for our 20th anniversary. My eyes drifted to the mantel, to the photo of Caroline's wedding day. Her radiant smile. Sheldon's awkward bow tie. Martha beside me, glowing with pride. That was 2007. Sheldon used to work at a modest insurance agency, drove an aging Honda Civic, and addressed me with an earnest "sir" that felt unforced. "Mr. Bennett," he said during our first real conversation, "I just want you to know, I'll look after Caroline. I might not have much yet, but I'm putting in the work to build something she can be proud of." His humility was genuine. I believed him. 2 years later, Martha was gone. Cancer took her in a matter of months, fast and cruel. Caroline was shattered. Sheldon was left scrambling to keep their small home afloat on a beginner's salary. The 2009 recession had just hit, and layoffs were sweeping through his office like wildfire. At Martha's funeral, Caroline crumpled into my arms. "Dad, I don't know what we're going to do. Sheldon's job isn't safe. We can't keep up with the mortgage." "Don't worry," I murmured as I held her. "I'll help. Just until you're back on your feet. Just until you're stable. Not permanently." In those early days, Sheldon was overflowing with gratitude. Handwritten notes. Surprise weekend visits to fix my fence or rake the leaves. Caroline called twice a week just to check in, often bringing the grandkids over for Sunday dinners. "Dad, you're saving us," she'd say with tears in her eyes. "We'll pay you back when things turn around." The first mortgage payment, $2,800, was supposed to be temporary. 6 months tops, Sheldon had said. "Once I get promoted." Then came the car loan, $450 each month. Just until we build a bit of equity. Then Tommy's kindergarten tuition, $2,000 a month. Just to give him a solid start. Every just for now became ongoing. Every short-term fix became the new normal. By 2012, the thank you notes stopped arriving. Sheldon's handyman weekends faded into quick drop-ins, long enough to grab a beer and complain about his job. Caroline's calls shrank to once a month, usually attached to a new request. "Dad, Emma's dance class is only $200 a month. Dad, the kids need updated laptops. Dad, the Airbnb cancelled. Can you cover a new one?" The word "please" vanished first. Then, "thank you." Eventually even, "can you" became, "you need to." By 2018, Sheldon no longer acknowledged my help at all. At block parties, he'd boast about the house upgrades, the kids' private schooling, the so-called lifestyle he built. When someone complimented his BMW, he'd nod proudly, crediting his financial savvy. Caroline began siding with him over me. When I gently suggested they start covering some costs on their own, her tone grew sharp. "Dad, you don't get how families work anymore. Sheldon's under so much pressure. The kids need consistency. You can't just disrupt everything because you feel underappreciated." Underappreciated. It landed like a punch to the ribs. Last Christmas, neither of them mentioned my support. Sheldon toasted his own hard work and sacrifices. Caroline posted photos of their designer gifts with captions about how blessed they were. I sat in my quiet living room, staring at their old thank you cards from 2009, and wondered, when did appreciation turn into assumption? Now, as the evening darkened around me, I could finally see what Martha would have wanted, not endless rescuing, but self-respect. Not unending sacrifice, but mutual regard. Outside, the shadows stretched across my lawn, and somewhere down the street, a phone began to ring. 3 days passed, like dominoes tipping over one by one. On Monday morning, the alerts began. Caroline called at 9:47 a.m., panic fraying her voice. "Dad, the mortgage bounced. We got hit with a $75 penalty. The bank wants $2,875 by tomorrow, or they're starting foreclosure." I said nothing. The silence hung long enough for her to give up and hang up. By noon, Sheldon's leasing company had left 2 voicemails about the missed $650 BMW payment. Caroline's SUV loan, another $480, bounced as well, tacking on a $50 penalty. Their home insurance policy lapsed by 3 p.m. Tuesday brought the storm. Caroline called again. This time I could hear Sheldon shouting in the background. "We can't cover it all," she cried. "I've applied everywhere, Target, Walmart, 3 restaurants. Even if I get hired this week, it's $12 an hour. That's less than $2,000 a month before taxes." For the first time in 15 years, she was doing math tied to survival. By Wednesday afternoon, I drove past Centura Academy at pickup time. Tommy and Emma waited on the curb with the other children whose tuition was paid in full. Earlier that morning, the school had called Caroline, $4,800 due immediately, or the kids would be unenrolled by Friday. That evening, my neighbor, Mrs. Payne, mentioned she'd overheard shouting from Caroline's house while out on her evening walk. "Sounds like money problems," she said softly. The young man was yelling about credit cards being maxed out. Thursday brought the breaking point. Caroline's third call came in at 2:15 p.m. "Dad, please," she said, her voice shaky. "I went to 5 interviews yesterday: McDonald's, a cleaning service, a grocery store. They all need recent job references. I haven't worked since 2009. Gone was the demanding tone I'd come to expect. In its place was something I hadn't heard in years: humility. "Sheldon tried to make the mortgage payment yesterday. We had $3,000 in the account. The payment's $2,875. He submitted it, then realized we wouldn't have anything left for food, gas, or utilities. He had to call the bank and reverse the payment." I didn't respond. "The BMW's being repossessed Monday unless we come up with $650 plus a $200 reinstatement fee." Still, I said nothing. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Dad, I think we're going to lose everything." I exhaled slowly. "Yes," I said. "You probably are." She broke down then, real, raw sobs, the kind that echo heartbreak. But this wasn't the grief of adolescence. This was adulthood catching up. By Friday morning, I sat in my study, adjusting the budget I had rerouted just days earlier. The funds I'd been sending each month? They were now redirected to something Martha and I had long postponed: our European river cruise, the Italian cooking retreat, a photography workshop in the Scottish Highlands. At 11:30 a.m. my phone rang. Sheldon's voice, stripped of its usual self-assurance, greeted me. "Mark, we need to talk." "We've talked." "No, we really need to sit down. Like adults. Figure out a way to work through this." "You mean how I can fix your mess?" A pause. Then, "Yes. That's exactly what I mean." At least he'd finally told the truth. "Come over Sunday afternoon. All of you. Bring the kids. What should we expect to talk about?" "Reality," I said and hung up. Outside, beneath the window, the first tulips were beginning to poke through the thawing soil. By Monday, my friend Dave from the hardware store gave me a call, concern in his voice. "Mark, I heard something troubling. Sheldon was at Murphy's bar last night, telling people you cut them off out of nowhere. Said you're kicking the kids out of private school just to make a point." I lowered my coffee cup. "What exactly did he say?" "He called it financial abandonment of innocent grandchildren. Used a bunch of corporate buzzwords. Made it sound like you're punishing Caroline over some trivial grudge." By Tuesday, Caroline had gone to my late wife's sister, Janet. Janet called that afternoon, clearly upset. "Caroline's devastated. She says you've abandoned them at their lowest point." She was crying. Said the kids don't understand why Grandpa doesn't love them anymore. "Did she also mention the $976,000 I've given them over the last 15 years? Silence. "She what?" "Nearly $1 million, Janet. Mortgage help, car payments, tuition, insurance, medical expenses, vacations, month after month, year after year. That can't be. I've kept records. Every penny." The next morning, Emma called. Her voice was small, like it had been rehearsed carefully. "Grandpa? Mommy says we might lose our house because you don't want to help anymore. Did we do something wrong?" My heart pulled, but I kept calm. "No, sweetheart. You haven't done anything wrong. Want to get ice cream later? Mommy says you might say no to everything now. I never say no to ice cream with my favorite girl." That afternoon at Dairy Queen, the sorrows she'd been coached into melted away as she told me about her painting for school. When I dropped her off, Caroline watched from the living room window, her eyes calculating, not grieving. Wednesday brought a more public confrontation. Nancy Morrison, a neighbor I'd known for decades, cornered me at the grocery store. Mark Bennett, I'm disappointed in you, she said loud enough for the next aisle to hear. Cutting off your daughter when she's desperate? What would Martha think? I looked her in the eye. Martha would say that 15 years and nearly $1 million is more than generous. Nancy blinked. $1 million? $976,000. Mortgage help, car loans, school fees, insurance, healthcare, vacations. I can show you the bank statements if you'd like. A few shoppers paused nearby. Nancy's face went pale. Caroline never said. Caroline doesn't talk much about what she receives. Only what she doesn't. That evening, Dave called again. Sheldon was back at Murphy's tonight. Tried the same speech. But Bill Henderson was there. You remember Bill? He sold them that BMW. What did he say? He asked how Sheldon managed a $60,000 vehicle on an insurance salary. When Sheldon started dodging, Bill reminded everyone that you co-signed the lease. Dave chuckled. The bar went real quiet after that. Thursday morning, I got a call from Tom, an old engineering buddy. Mark, I heard some chatter at the cafe. Also heard Dave's version. Mind if I ask directly? Did you really support them all these years? Every single month since Martha passed. And they never once acknowledged it. Last Christmas, I added, Sheldon gave a toast about his own sacrifices. Caroline uploaded photos of the lavish gifts, captioned #family blessings like they built it all themselves. Tom gave a low whistle. That's cold, Mark. By Friday evening, I was watering the front garden when Mrs. Payne approached from her porch. Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Payne said as she approached. My daughter overheard something during school pickup today. Parents were talking, something about your family. Word is, some folks are beginning to question the story your son-in-law's been telling. I continued tending to the roses. Everyone's entitled to their own version of things. She also said you've done a lot for those grandchildren over the years. I have. I love them dearly. No one doubts that. She said gently. Never have. Saturday morning, Caroline called. Her voice was sharp and frantic. People are starting to ask questions, Dad, awkward ones. About money, about timelines, about receipts. You have to stop spreading lies about us. I haven't lied, Caroline. I've just answered people honestly when they've asked me directly. You're ruining our reputation here. I'm not ruining anything, I said calmly. I've just stopped helping you build a false one. The line went silent. Sunday came with bright skies and the knowledge that by afternoon, we were supposed to all be back in my living room. Only this time, the outside world had taken notice. That meeting never happened. Monday morning brought a different development. Dave rang me at 8:15. Mark, I drove past Caroline's place last night. There's a foreclosure notice taped to the door. County seal and everything. I set my coffee cup down slowly. 30 days. They had 30 days to come up with $8,625, 3 months of missed payments, plus late fees and legal costs. Tuesday brought further changes. Caroline's BMW was gone, replaced by an aging silver Honda Civic. Mrs. Payne later said she saw Sheldon at the Honda lot, looking defeated, while Caroline filled out forms. They must have cut their costs dramatically, she said. That BMW probably set them back close to $1,000 each month. Wednesday afternoon, I stopped by the grocery store. There was Caroline, behind a register, wearing a blue vest and a plastic name tag. She scanned each item mechanically. When Mrs. Patterson entered her lane, Caroline turned crimson. Oh, sweetheart, the older woman said gently. I didn't know you were working here. Started Monday, Caroline murmured, eyes down. Paper or plastic? Her shift ended at 6. I watched from outside as she trudged to the old Honda, her shoulders bent with fatigue. That evening, Tommy called me. Grandpa, he whispered. Mom and Dad are yelling again. Really loud. What are they arguing about, buddy? Money. Dad says Mom's job doesn't help. Mom says Dad never made enough. Then they started saying mean stuff about you. What kind of things? They said you ruined everything on purpose. But then Mom started crying and said, maybe they ruined it themselves. Thursday morning, on my usual walk, I heard shouting through the thin walls of their house. On my feet for 8 hours, and for what? Nothing. We never appreciated what we had. Your ego got us into this. 15 years of help, and now look. Then silence. A door slammed. An engine started. Sheldon's Civic pulled away. That afternoon, Emma came to visit. Her usual brightness was missing. Grandpa, why is everything so different now? I sat her at the kitchen table with cookies and milk. What feels different, sweetheart? Mom's always tired. She cries sometimes. Dad's mad a lot. They keep talking about losing our house. Tommy says we might have to change schools. And how does that make you feel? She hesitated. Scared. But also. Her voice trailed off. Like maybe they should have said thank you more. Out of the mouths of babes. Friday night, I was in my study reading when the doorbell rang. Sheldon stood on the porch alone. The crisp, confident man I once knew was gone. His shirt was wrinkled, tie askew, his face worn thin by exhaustion. Mark, he said, can we talk? Just the two of us. Man to man. I let him in. He sat heavily in the same armchair where he'd once demanded I reinstate payments. He clasped his hands tightly between his knees. The foreclosure's happening. 30 days. Caroline's working full-time, 40 hours a week at $13.50 an hour. After taxes, that's maybe $1,100 a month. I'm bringing in about $5,800. Our mortgage is $2,875. He looked at me, something close to humility in his eyes. We can't make it work. We never could, not without you. No, I said. You never could. I've been thinking about what you said, about earning respect versus being handed it. His voice cracked slightly. I didn't earn any of it, did I? The house, the cars, the schools, it was all you. I looked at him quietly. What are you asking for, Sheldon? I want to know if there's a way forward. Not to go back, but to build something better. Outside, the street lamps were flickering on as dusk settled over the neighborhood. Saturday afternoon, I was sorting old financial files when the doorbell rang again. Caroline stood there, still in her grocery store uniform. Her eyes were red. She looked smaller, stripped of the entitlement that had wrapped around her for so long. Dad, she said softly, we need to talk. It's about Tommy and Emma. She stepped inside and sat where Sheldon had been the night before. Her hands trembled as she pulled off her name tag. 4 days, she whispered. That's all we have left before they finalize the foreclosure. Tommy keeps asking if we're going to lose the house. Emma had nightmares last night, moving to a strange place. She's scared. I watched her, this woman who had once stood so tall on the shoulders of others. What do you want from me, Caroline? I want my kids to feel safe, Caroline said quietly. I want them to finish out the school year with their classmates. I want Emma to sleep through the night without waking up in tears over the idea of leaving her room. She looked at me, really looked, eyes stripped of pride, no trace of manipulation left. Just a mother in survival mode. I've been on my feet all week, clocking 40 hours scanning groceries for people who used to come to our parties. Yesterday, Mrs. Henderson came through my line and asked why I was working there. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. But it didn't, I said. No. I smiled and asked, paper or plastic? Because I finally get it now. What it means to work. To earn. To stand on your own. What you've been trying to teach us this whole time. She dabbed her nose with a tissue from her purse. Sheldon told me what you said last night. About finding a way forward. There could be one, I replied. But it would mean real change, for both of you. She straightened in her seat. Tell me. I leaned forward, elbows on knees. I'll pay the kids' tuition directly to Centura Academy. I'll handle their medical needs, sports fees, clothing, music lessons. I'll also open college funds for each of them. Her face lifted slightly, the first trace of real hope I'd seen in weeks. But I wasn't done. I will not pay your mortgage, your car notes, your insurance, or any other adult expenses. You and Sheldon will live according to what you actually bring home. No more illusions. She nodded slowly. We can do that. We'll find a smaller place. There's more, I said. I want acknowledgement. A clear, public recognition of the $976,000 in 15 years I gave to your household. I want apologies, not just to me, but to those you misled. And I want sincerity. Not just when you're desperate. Her face crumpled. Sheldon will never go for that, she said softly. His pride. Then his pride is more important to him than his children's stability. She sat with that for a while. Didn't argue. Just stared. What kind of acknowledgement? A letter to the local paper, thanking me for my support. A Facebook post that tells the truth, 15 years of help. And face-to-face apologies to the people you misled these past couple of weeks. And if we do all that, then your children will have security, and the love of their grandfather. You and I will have a relationship based on honesty and respect. But you'll live within the reality of your own paychecks. She covered her face with both hands. I don't know if I can get him to agree. You have 48 hours. After that, the offer's off the table. She rose slowly. Her grocery store vest was creased and faded from long hours. At the door, she turned back. Dad, thank you for still loving Tommy and Emma. I never stopped loving any of you, Caroline. I just stopped enabling the fantasy. After she left in the old Honda, I stayed seated in the living room, the news murmuring in the background. Somewhere across town, a conversation neither of them wanted to have was about to begin. According to Dave, who lives across the street from them, Caroline pulled into the driveway at 5:30 p.m. Sheldon was in the kitchen, reheating leftover pizza. When she walked in, still wearing her store vest, he noticed her puffy eyes and tired posture. Where've you been? Your shift ended at 3. I went to see Dad. The microwave beeped into the silence that followed. Sheldon took out the plate, set it on the counter, then turned toward her. You went behind my back? After everything we said about facing this together? We're out of time, Sheldon. 4 days left. The kids are scared. I had to try something. She dropped into a kitchen chair, peeled off her name tag with shaking fingers. He's willing to help. But there are conditions. What kind of conditions? He'll pay for everything the kids need: school, clothes, doctor visits, extracurriculars, college funds. Sheldon's eyes lit up. That's great. When does he pick the mortgage back up? He doesn't, she said. We're expected to live on what we earn. The light in his face vanished. That's not realistic. You know what our bills look like. There's something else, she added, voice low. He wants us to go public. Thank him for the years of help. Apologize. Own up to how we treated him. Sheldon's face went pale, then flushed with anger. He wants me to humiliate myself? Admit I've been a freeloader? He's given us almost $1 million, Sheldon. $1 million. Do you even grasp what that means? That wasn't just help. That was sacrifice. He turned away. He did what a father should do. No, she said, getting to her feet, her uniform stained and wrinkled. He did what a saint does. And we treated him like an open wallet. From upstairs came the sound of Tommy's voice. Mom? Dad? Why are you yelling? They froze. Their argument had grown too loud. Emma appeared on the landing in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Are you fighting about Grandpa again? Caroline climbed the stairs to comfort her daughter. Sheldon stood alone, fists clenched, pacing the kitchen floor. When she returned 20 minutes later, he was still there, staring at the foreclosure notice spread out on the counter. I'm not doing it, he muttered, eyes fixed on the floor. I won't stand in front of our neighbors and admit I failed to take care of my own family. Caroline folded her arms. Then what's your plan? Where are we going to live? Where will the kids go to school? We'll figure it out. Maybe a loan, maybe bankruptcy. I don't know. But I'm not groveling to your father over things we didn't even do wrong. She pulled out her phone, opening the calculator app. Okay. Let's figure it out. We bring in $6,900 a month combined. The mortgage alone is $2,875. That leaves $4,025 for everything else. She tapped more numbers. Honda payment, $350. Car insurance, $250. Utilities, $300. Groceries, $600. Gas, $200. That's $1,700. Now we're down to $2,325. See? That's manageable. I haven't added the kids yet. She kept typing. Tommy's baseball, $120. Emma's dance, $80. School supplies, clothes, doctor copays, birthday parties, Christmas. Her voice cracked. Sheldon, we can't even afford our own children. Through the thin walls, Tommy's voice drifted down again. Mom, Emma's crying. She says we're gonna be homeless. Caroline looked at her husband. This wasn't the woman who had demanded her father resume their payments 2 weeks ago. That version of her had been erased. We've got 36 hours. Dad's offer ends Monday at noon. Without another word, she turned and climbed the stairs to soothe the kids, leaving Sheldon alone with a foreclosure notice and a calculator that refused to bend to wishful thinking. At 10:15 Monday morning, the old Honda rolled into my driveway, carrying all 4 of them. From the window, I watched Sheldon step out from the passenger side, shoulders slumped like a man who hadn't slept. Caroline knocked on my door, standing between Tommy and Emma in their school uniforms. Sheldon lingered behind them, shirt wrinkled, eyes hollow. Dad, Caroline said, we're ready to accept your offer. All of it. I nodded and ushered them into the living room. The kids sat on the couch. Caroline returned to the same chair from Saturday. Sheldon stayed standing, hands clasped behind his back like he was facing a judge. Caroline spoke first. The bank called this morning. Foreclosure finalizes at 3 p.m. unless we pay $8,625. We don't have it. Emma tugged gently on my sleeve. Grandpa, are we really gonna lose our house? Not if I have anything to say about it, sweetheart. Sheldon cleared his throat. Mark, I need to say a few things. He walked over to the mantel, eyes on the wedding photo of Martha and me. Then he turned to face us. 15 years ago, you offered short-term help. I turned that into a long-term crutch. And I never once acknowledged what you gave up to do that. His voice faltered. I told people the renovations were because I was doing well. I pretended the cars were thanks to my bonuses. I let the kids believe you were just being generous. Not that you were the one actually providing for them. Caroline reached over and took Emma's hand. I owe you too, Dad. I treated your generosity like it was something I was entitled to, like it was just part of being your daughter. Not something you chose to give, again and again. Sheldon nodded. You paid our mortgage for 15 years. That's $54,000. You paid off our cars, our insurance, school tuition, medical bills, trips, holidays, birthdays, dance lessons, baseball fees. Tommy turned toward me, eyes wide. Grandpa, you paid for my baseball? Caroline placed a hand on his shoulder. Grandpa paid for almost everything, sweetheart. Almost $1 million over 15 years. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Why didn't you tell us? Caroline's expression crumbled. Because we were embarrassed. Not by Grandpa's help, but by how we acted like we didn't need it. I leaned forward in my seat. If I help you keep the house today, things will change. I'll cover Tommy and Emma's school tuition, paid directly to Centura. I'll take care of their medical expenses, clothing, extracurriculars, and set up their college funds. But I won't cover your mortgage, car payments, or any other adult bills. From here on out, you live on what you actually earn. Sheldon nodded slowly. We understand. There's more, I said. I want a public acknowledgement. A letter to the local paper thanking me for 15 years of support. A social media post with honest gratitude. And face-to-face apologies to the neighbors you misled. When? Caroline asked. Before Saturday. Sheldon's jaw tightened, but he nodded. What else? Monthly family dinners. Here. Not to talk finances, but to maintain connection. Because family is about respect, not convenience. I stood and went to my desk. Pulled out my checkbook. I'm calling First National to make an emergency payment. But this is the last time I'll ever pay your mortgage. After today, it's sink or swim, on your own salaries. As I dialed, I heard Emma whisper to Caroline, Are we gonna be okay now? Caroline's answer was soft but steady. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be okay. And for the first time in 15 years, I believed her. 3 months later, on the third Saturday in June, they arrived for our scheduled family gathering right at 2 p.m. Caroline had been promoted, now shift supervisor at the grocery store, earning $15.50 an hour. Sheldon had learned how to manage their finances. No more illusions, no more shortcuts. Grandpa. Emma burst through my front door in her soccer gear, knees streaked with green, a shiny medal swinging from her neck. Look what I got at the tournament. That's amazing, sweetheart. Tell me about the winning goal. While Emma launched into the play-by-play, Tommy handed me his report card, straight A's, along with a handwritten note from his teacher, praising his focus, attitude, and growing confidence. Caroline gently placed a manila folder on the coffee table. Dad, here's our monthly financial summary. We're covering the mortgage, groceries, utilities, and the car loan entirely from our combined paychecks. We even started an emergency savings account. 3 months ago, Sheldon couldn't meet my eyes. Now he was engaged, attentive, and sincere. Mark, he said, I wanted to get your thoughts on a possible promotion. Our regional director might be leaving next quarter. What would the new role look like? I asked. More responsibility, better salary. But also travel. I just want to be sure Caroline and I can still juggle the kids' schedules when I'm away. I nodded, flipping open my own folder, organized, as always, with engineer-level precision. Tommy's soccer fees? Paid directly to Colorado Youth Sports. Emma's piano lessons? Handled through Mountain Music Academy. Next month's dental appointments for both? Already booked and covered by my family insurance plan. Caroline smiled, genuinely. A warmth I hadn't seen on her face in years. Dad, I don't know how to thank you for keeping the kids' lives steady while Sheldon and I learned how to be real adults. Speaking of that, Sheldon added, we finished the community service hours Judge Martinez gave us after those public apology letters. We've been volunteering at the food pantry. It's humbling. We met people who are truly struggling, not just overextended like we were. Emma tugged my sleeve. Grandpa, can we show you the thank you cards we made? Out came 2 glittery pieces of construction paper, both covered in crayon and love. Tommy's read, thank you for taking care of us, even when Mom and Dad forgot to say please. Emma's was simpler, I love you, Grandpa. You're the best. These weren't prompted. Not guilt-ridden. Just honest, unfiltered expressions from children who finally grasped what security and love really mean. There's one more thing, Caroline said softly. Sheldon and I have been talking about eventually buying a smaller place. Something we can afford on our own. Not now, but maybe in a couple of years, once we've built some savings. That sounds like smart planning, I said. Sheldon nodded. We want to show you we can be independent, not because we don't value your help, but because we finally understand what it costs you. As the visit wound down, Tommy looked up and asked the question that mattered most. Grandpa, are you proud of us now? I looked around the room, at my daughter, who had finally embraced responsibility. At my son-in-law, who had found enough courage to choose humility. At my grandchildren, who now understood the meaning of gratitude. Yes, Tommy, I said. I'm proud of all of you. As I walked them to their car, Emma's hand in mine, I glanced at the old Honda. The same one that had replaced their shiny BMW. But now, it didn't feel like a downgrade. It looked like wisdom. A choice, not a loss. I watched their taillights disappear down the quiet street and thought of Martha. She'd be proud too, not of the money I'd given or the boundaries I finally set, but of the people we'd become. Of the family we'd rebuilt, one hard conversation at a time. What I thought I needed was revenge. What I got instead was growth. And that kind of justice? It's the kind that lasts.